What's up, guys? Sebastian here. I saw a guy on IG the other day. I think he's Australian and he lives in the UAE. He's been living in the Middle East for years, learned Arabic, learned Farsi, adopted Islam, and now raises his family in this faith, which is completely fine. But he was talking about how his number one tip for young guys is to not seek sex outside of marriage, to channel their energy into a business, into achievements, and not chase women. And I thought I'd make this quick video because you can already kind of guess what my viewpoint would be on this. And I understand where he's coming from. Because the fact is, there's a lot of guys out there who... This guy just knocked down that pillar. I guess he thought it was mounted. Anyways, there's a lot of guys who have zero direction and are basically wasting their lives away not doing anything. But here's the thing. A lot of them are not getting women either. You know, I think this is something that needs to be screamed from the rooftops. You know, a lot of people are under this impression that it's easy to go out and indiscriminately have sex with tons of women. Tons of attractive women, let's say, which it isn't. I mean, at least not for a guy who doesn't really have the social skills, doesn't have anything going for him. But that seems to be the prevailing attitude. And so when this guy gets up there and he says that you shouldn't be doing those things, and instead you should be working, building a business, he's not exactly wrong. But here's a major hole in his argument. Here's a major issue. You have millions upon millions of men in these Arab countries. I haven't been to many of them. I've been to Egypt and I've been to Jordan. You have millions of men in these countries who are young, who are going crazy with their hormones, and all they want is a nice young lady to spend their time with, and they're not able to. They're repressed. Both the girls and the men are repressed. They want to be with each other. They want to go off and have fun, but their religion forbids them from doing so. And as we can see in a lot of these countries, it leads to some major issues. It leads to a lot of injustice being done to some of these women. A lot of men who are frustrated, who are angry, and who lash out in some other way. A lot of these men, if they go to the West, they tend to be socially behind in some ways because they're not able to, it goes beyond even just respecting women, but they're not able to flirt. They're not able to socialize effectively with these women to actually establish a healthy, good, normal relationship. So that just leads to a lot more frustration. And a lot of these guys will retreat into their religion and they'll lash out at these women, right? And they'll call them all sorts of mean names. They'll put the blame on them instead of looking at their own folly and what their beliefs and what their lifestyle has actually been lacking in. So they've been kind of set up to fail in that way. And we could also segue this into an argument about why this creed is incompatible with the West, but we're not talking about that today. Really, people can do whatever they want. You know, you as a man, you can focus on your business, or you can go out and socialize, and you can chase women. The sweet spot is always going to be in the middle. It's between getting things done, working, educating yourself, learning some skills, but also not neglecting the fact that you're a social creature. You need to go out there, you need to meet people, you need to meet women. And if you don't, you're going to end up in this position where, well, it's very likely you'll end up in a position where you're older and you might have your financial life figured out. You might have quite a few things going for you, but you still are scratching your head wondering, okay, well, now it's time to find a wife. Why can't I find one? Why is this so hard? They didn't tell me it was going to be this hard. Well, you know, you didn't listen, right? You weren't placing importance on this. You thought that it's really just as quick as get this money, show up in this nice car, wear a suit, you know, work out, pump up your muscles, and somehow the right woman is just going to come along. This is the biggest load of BS that is shoved down the throats of so many young men by these so-called authority figures. And in reference to this guy, you look at the lifestyle that he shows off on his Instagram, that he's driving these fast cars, he's dressing up in suits, he's having meetings with high net worth individuals, influential people, so on and so forth, which again, on its own is completely fine, but it's a fallacy, right? You're thinking that just because this guy seems to be successful, that he's right about all these different things. So, look, at the end of the day, is it okay to be a complete degenerate and go out to bars and clubs every single night and get pissed drunk and go after all these questionable women? Maybe not, but if you want to do that, you can. Is it okay to be a complete religious zealot, or zealot, how do you pronounce the word, and live completely by the book, never sin, right? Never do anything that might go against the teachings, and completely abstain from anything that could be, related to sex, related to self-gratification, and therefore not going through the experience, not being able to understand women and socializing to the extent that you need to actually be successful in this area. Neither of these are ideal. So you make that decision for yourself, but that's my point of view. If you don't learn this stuff, you're gonna regret it. So, and the really funny thing is that some of my best friends are Arabs. They're from Jordan, they're from Egypt, and they all agree with me. They all say that the religion is taken way out of proportion in a lot of cases, and it ends up creating a lot of these guys who, they might seem friendly, they might seem like decent people at first, but you put them in a room with a Western woman or any woman, and they're going to make fools out of themselves. They're not going to know how to maintain their composure. They're going to go wild, and the woman's not going to be attracted to them because they can tell that this guy has not learned these simple skills on how to socialize, how to be smooth, how to be flirty, but also at the same time maintain their masculinity. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at this stuff either, but I'm sure you might have encountered something like this in the past, whether you've traveled or you've only just stayed in your country. So that's my 2 cents.